Buddy. I think we have a lot of information to cover, so we're going to just jump right in. Let me go ahead and share my screen so you'll be able to see my slides. All right, so are you able to see the planning your extension event first slide?
Yes, we can see that.
Excellent. All right. So I know we have a wide range of faculty and staff on today's Zoom, and so I'm very, very happy about that because I did serve as a faculty member. I am a tenured faculty member in actually FCS many, many years ago. For the last 15 years, I've been an area extension director. So I've served on both sides of um, the content as well as the logistics. And that's why I'm so happy that we have faculty and staff on this Zoom today because we all really are essential to making certain that extension events in your county, your region, the state are successful because the faculty are the content specialists and the staff help make all the behind the scenes logistics happen. And so, what we're going to talk about today is really a wide variety of the logistical pieces, but we all need to be aware of that and be familiar. So I'm going to start kind of with the basics. So when a faculty member is thinking about presenting a program out there, they really look at it or should be looking at it from kind of all of these pieces and parts. This schematic, I think, really does um, put it in perspective of when you're planning a program, of course, you're looking at, okay, where does this fit in the big picture? And the big picture for faculty oftentimes are from the promotion and tenure situation. Where does this fit? I need to make certain that I'm gathering the data that leads us to the Qualtrics piece. I have to make certain that I'm, doing the teaching effectiveness. I have to make certain, did I send, my survey instrument through IRB so that maybe I can have a publication as a result of some of the data from my, ongoing programs in this particular area. And then, of course, that all falls into annually into the faculty evaluation. So I just wanted to kind of share this for faculty and staff to take a look at. There are many parts and pieces as you begin to plan your programming. And this actual schematic is on UME Answers. I wanted to make certain everyone's aware of that. And all the links that we mentioned today are going to be on a resource sheet for you that Dacia, Dr. Randolph, will share after this presentation. So I know many of you are familiar with UME Answers, but newer faculty and staff may not. So we have a number of websites that I'm going to be referencing today. The next one is the Faculty and Staff Affairs page. There are lots of important links here as you're planning a program, and you can see many of the things that you kind of have to keep in mind as you're planning any successful extension program. And so this website is also very important to familiarize yourself with. And then the program and organizational development website. And again, it's kind of layered information. We have information in multiple areas, but I think that that's a good thing because if you can't find it in one place, you can definitely go to the second one I showed or this third site. So this really does have a lot of good onboarding information for faculty as well as teaching resources. Um, Again, information about the promotion and then program planning and evaluation and reporting. But most importantly, what I wanted to show you is if you haven't attended the professional development sessions that prior to today, there are a number of other ones that have occurred. These aren't all of them from 2025, but the ones that I felt are very important for planning extension programs because UMERS, of course, is where the data will have to be entered. And so things have changed. And so everyone does need to be aware of the 2025 reporting for UMERS. And then, of course, survey design and Qualtrics. That was a very informative one as well, because you're going to be gathering data during these sessions that you're having. So you want to make certain that you're able to design those and you have the skills to do that. And then needs assessment, Dr. Silver had presented that, which that's of course part of the process, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. And then grant writing, oftentimes that's what is able to fund many of the programs that we're able to offer throughout the state. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that professional development schedule. Also, as part of this website, many important pieces and parts of our work are here, and drawing the attention to, of course, our individual extension plan. So as we are developing our programs, the steps and the logistics that we'll talk about today, how does that fit into the plan that you have already submitted for this current year? So most faculty, all faculty, should be starting here as you are developing your program. And again, you all are the content experts. We're going to talk about logistics, but I feel like this piece has to be talked about because everything does hinge on when you're developing a program that you're developing it from the outcomes backwards, really. So what is it that you're trying to achieve in with your participants? What are those short-term results, and what are the ultimately the long-term results? And then you develop your programming backwards. So again, that's more of the content, which you all are, I'm sure, very prepared for, but I always feel like that's something essential to talk about. And of course, the needs assessment piece is vital. And that's what leads us into our actual logistics and our UME event planning timeline. All of the steps that I'm going to talk about today, again, it's a logistics checklist. And we actually do have the checklist for you, and you'll get that at the end of the program. I can just hold it up here for you to see. But all of the steps that are in here are in the form of a checklist. And I think that, again, this isn't just for a new faculty member or a seasoned faculty member to sit down and okay, 8 to 12 weeks prior to the event, I've got to do all of these things, because we know that in our offices, it's a team. It's the faculty and staff working together to implement and execute these successful extension programs. So that's why I'm so happy that we have a great audience today of faculty and staff, because we all play a part in each step, many of the steps that are involved here. So first task, 3 months out typically, is when you're going to determine your target audience, your location, venue, the capacity, the accessibility of that venue. And then looking at potential dates. Some of the things that oftentimes have caused issues are that, we look at dates that are good with the venue, but we haven't necessarily considered holidays, like within our office, or, how we're going to have the support we need to implement that program, because there might be other major county or statewide UME events. So if we want to hold, let's say, I used to do diabetes education. So if I wanted to hold this big diabetes class, in the middle of the county, and I didn't realize it was also 4-H achievement night, or it was, something where I wouldn't have the support that I would need, or would bombard our office during a very busy time. So it's important to have, a pulse on what your colleagues are doing as well. And then if you have speakers that you'd like to bring in, what's their availability, so that you can really make certain the date is going to be the best possible date. And then, of course, budget. Budget's always key. Looking at the expenses and revenue, and including the registration fees, the minimum attendance needed, and the available funding that you might have. So examining that budget of past events. Okay, have you done this event before? Or if you are a new faculty member, the person before you, have they done that? What's it cost, and what have we brought in terms of revenue? So these are all things to consider before just jumping in, making certain you understand what the cost of the venue, the food, and make certain that we consider accommodations because that sometimes does increase the cost of food, um, supplies, materials, and then what are we going to have to determine the registration fee to be? Are we going to have sponsorships? And if we do, those have to be handled in a special way as well in terms of accepting those checks from sponsors. And then do we have any existing funds in our our budget line in our county to utilize for that particular program purpose? And then what's the best venue? Given our target audience, because we've done a very extensive needs assessment, so we know who our target audience is. So, what's the best venue? Is it, first of all, is it in the middle of the county, or are we targeting, let's say, maybe a Mennonite Amish community? That's probably not going to be here, like in the middle of my county. It's going to be at one extreme or the other. So, we don't always hold our meetings at our extension office in each of the counties because it just may not hold enough people or it may not be centrally located. So, really making certain not what's most convenient for us, but what's going to reach our audience most effectively. As well as, if we have, for instance, the diabetes classes, those would fill up with 100 people. So I had to determine, where can I have that? And do I even want 100 people? Is it effective for 100 people? So all of those considerations are very vital. And then, of course, accessibility. That is a necessity. So there were times when, there were places where I would be offered to use a building, but it would be in a fire hall on the second floor with no elevator. Um, that really doesn't work. So we need to make certain it's ADA accessible and that the parking situation is going to be accessible for all. And then one of the most important things about when you're looking at the venue is the terms and conditions of using that venue. And a lot of times we have had situations where a faculty member is committed to a particular venue, but we didn't understand fully the terms and conditions. We didn't know they don't allow outside food. So we can't bring in the coffee and snacks because they don't allow that. We have to use their vendor. That increases the cost. There are times we haven't realized that they require a signed contract or MOU. That's a pretty big issue, and we're going to talk through that. So all of these things need to be determined right away and way before we're advertising where we're having it or the date. So again, we're out still 2 months into the timeline, the UME event planning timeline. This is at the point where you would want to work with your financial admin in your office to help you as a faculty member secure the venue. And many of the staff that are on here, maybe you just do this part yourself, and that's great because every office is different. And it is, though, very important, though, that it's a team approach with this because if there is a signed contract, agreement, or MOU, even if it's no cost, there are very strict UMD procedures that we have to follow. And as I said a minute ago, we cannot advertise anything until we have all of that executed through campus. Some venues also want a certificate of self-insurance. So that is also a process that has to be sent through kind of a completely different site. So I think you got my point that do I sign a venue agreement, MOU, or contract? No, none of us actually on this Zoom today can sign a contract or agree to terms on behalf of the university. That's the bottom line. We just don't have the authorization to do that. So when you do get that completed venue contract and make certain that if you're at least filling out the details of it, that it's University of Maryland as the name, not the Garrett County Extension Office, not the Master Gardener Program, but the University of Maryland, because that's who they're entering into the contract with the venue. And then send it to your AED or CED and the financial admin. And again, even if it's just an MOU to use the room, there could be language in it that does not allow us to sign it. Um, so the agreement, MOU, or contract then will be reviewed, and there are a number of ways. And for those admins on the call today, we know that there are various ways that we've been sending contracts, MOUs, and agreements through. Some go through Workday, some go through Concur, and the $0 ones go through Aura Rollins through AgPass. So that's why it's very important that it gets sent to your admin in the office to process it the proper way. And there are, just like everything, there are numerous ways to do the same thing, but we're trying to work on some step-by-step details for that so that everyone's aware and it's transparent on exactly what types of contracts go where. So again, wait to advertise, register the participants, after we have everything fully executed, because there have been situations where I can give you an example at a fire hall where we used to do an achievement night. They would not allow some of the language to be removed from their contract that campus wanted removed, the indemnification clauses, and we could not have our event there. So we had to move to another location. Had we advertised it, that would have been, not a good situation for sure. I wanted to also point this out. This is from General Counsel, and many people think, well, I'll just sign it and then I'll get my fingers slapped or whatever. But I just wanted to point this out, this section here, that it truly is illegal for us to be signing anything. It prohibits UMD from contracting any liability. So when there is that indemnification clause, if we were to sign that, um, there are civil and criminal penalties that state employees who violate that statute could face. So this isn't something that we just take lightly. And I wanted to just point this out, that it is something that we need to make certain we're not signing anything. So I wanted to show you a couple of examples to put this into perspective. This was an MOU for us to use Garrett College. It's centrally located here in this county for our extension programs. And so we were wanting to use it for the whole year. And as you can see, the time frame of a year, they were going to charge us $150 to just utilize their space for the year. It seems very benign. If I read it, I would be like, okay, maybe I could sign this. I know I can't, but um, if it was handed to somebody, a faculty member, a staff member, because it says MOU, it doesn't say it's a contract. It doesn't matter. This got sent through to campus, and they actually, because it was financial, it definitely had to be through. We thought, oh, maybe you could just pay with a P card. Absolutely not. So this does have to go through the procurement process and be signed by them. So I just wanted to point that out, even though it doesn't have any language that you would maybe think, it still has to be signed by them. Here's another example of one that actually says application for use of facilities. It's not saying MOU, it doesn't say contract, uh, it says application. Well, that seems very benign to me, but you read through it, okay, nothing here. And then, of course, many of us sign things personally that have 30 items. Well, of course, we sent this through campus. And as you see, number 2 has a hold harmless clause, which we know is not going to work. And then it also asks for the individual or group will add the church as an additional insured under the outside group's liability insurance policy. So again, we don't pick through this. We send it to campus. They marked these things and said, see attached addendum. And they needed this piece added to the application that the church for 4-H Achievement Night, and the church did sign it. unlike the fire hall that did not want to sign something similar. So I just wanted to make certain that you saw, a few examples of how this can look very innocent, but again, campus has to weigh in. Same thing here. This was contract. But again, it's very simple. It's just a Master Gardener event that we're exhibiting at their event. But again, here was a clause, and they also wanted us to buy their insurance, which we cannot do. So that got sent through campus. They crossed this out. And then when we went to purchase the insurance, our insurance, not purchase it, but apply for our insurance, um, then we had this contract to go along with it that shows that campus had crossed this out and that campus had signed it. So speaking of insurance, that's this slide where we actually, on our resource list that you'll get after this presentation, Diane has done some instructions for you using Scribe. And so Scribe takes you step by step through how to apply for the insurance. It's on this website, university website, to get the certificate of insurance. And you'll get a Google form and you'll complete the various sections of the form. And I can guarantee you, Hector will not give you the certificate of insurance if the contract you attach does not have that indemnification clause crossed out and signed by someone on campus. So once you go through that process, this is what results: a certificate of insurance. And this was for the church that I showed you earlier, that application. And this is a continuous, no expiration date on that for this particular location. So hopefully, many of you on the call have already done this many times, but for new faculty and staff, I just wanted to make certain that you were aware of that. So we're moving on. We're like about 2 months out from the program. That's when you really do start to pull your team together and review all the staffing assignments. As a faculty member, at first, I tried to do all of these steps myself, and I quickly learned that I need support from the experts in my office, and that's the staff members, because many of these logistical pieces, they are very well versed on and can help me. And also the day of the event. When you have a big event, you can't do that on your own either. You really do need to have secured some staff there to help register as people come in, especially if it's 80, 100 people. Those participants want to talk to you as the presenter, and you want to be able to be engaged. And so that planning team is vital, so that you're not going to the staff the day before and saying, hey, I need help out there. 2 months prior, it's on the people's schedules that need to be there to help you. And then, of course, all the staffing assignments along the way in preparing for this. One of the big staff assignments is setting up the online pre-registration, whether it be an Eventbrite, a Google form, the phone calls into the office. There's nothing worse than you as a faculty member setting up something and then the calls are coming in and our staff don't know anything about the date, the location. So again, that's why this planning team and reviewing the assignments is vital. And then the staff member setting up the pre-registration, because there are things in that, and I know Kate's going to talk about it, that are vital, that have to be done consistently in each office. One of the things we're going to talk a lot about is in pre-registration, we need all the participant data related to the compliance items. Again, it's, we have to put it out there. Whether or not our participants choose to answer is one thing, but we have to make certain we have the self-identify data, the program assurance, and the accommodation statement in everything that we're putting out there. And then also determining if we're going to have on-site registration available for walk-in participants during those events. So I'm going to turn this over to Kate Welch, and she's going to talk about registration platforms for events.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm going to talk about Eventbrite. So getting started, if you're new to Eventbrite, a few things to go over. For paid tickets, they do have, several fees to process those payments on their site. Can you go? Yeah, thank you. So when setting up your account, it's recommended to have one per office, and then add users as you need them. So let's say, you have several events happening. That way everyone, even staff, are users on the Eventbrite, and they can see, well, I know this event is happening, and then I can go and get the link for people. I can tell them what time it is, what the information is. It really is helpful to have multiple people on the account helping manage, questions and things that come in through Eventbrite. So service fees, they apply to both credit cards and any at the door payments that you accept for your event. And it also applies to the $1.79 per ticket sold. So only the 2.9% fee will apply to your credit card attendees who have purchased by credit card. Your attendees absorb those fees, and that is something that I haven't actually done yet. We usually absorb the fees within the program, and it's just automatically taken out before the check is sent to us. And again, at the end of the event, you'll get an email saying the check has been processed, and after a week or so, you'll receive it. And I do want to remind everyone, when you're setting up the account for payment, that you do need to not sign off on that yourself. And so there is a contact, Lillian Nash. She would be the person to contact to set up the W-9 information for payouts within Eventbrite. And I know there are EACs out there still. So if you're having it sent to your EAC, I recommend having, whoever's signing the W-9 for your EAC to sign off on that information within your Eventbrite account. You can go to the next slide, please.
Kate, before you.
All right, so yep, there we go, thank you. So this screen is a snapshot of what attendees will see when they go to the link for Eventbrite for your specific event. So important information like date and time should be listed here pretty clearly for everyone. Location, you can also see a refund policy. You're able to reset refund policies within Eventbrite. So, if you have it during a time of year where weather might become an issue, you can always, extend it or bring it back, just so people aren't like it. Yeah, it's it can change variably due to that. And then we can see over in the right of the corner that the attendee is being charged for the admission for fees for admission to the event. So they pay for that, and then again, there are occasions when, depending on price as well, you can absorb them if it makes sense to you. You can go to the next slide, please. So this is further down within the Eventbrite page that the attendee would see. This is a description of your event. You can include an agenda, a schedule, and an important part of this is to add statements for compliance. So we have our program assurance statement, we have our accommodation statement, then we have our self-identification statement for those questions that will be asked in registration. Next slide, please. And another important page in Eventbrite is the dashboard. So at the top, you have your specific link for your event, and you can always change that so it's a little bit shorter than what Eventbrite actually puts out there. And then you can see your net sales for the event, you know, how many tickets you've sold. And another important part is the reports that you can see within Eventbrite. So you can view an attendee report, or you can look at your order form responses, which will show attendees' answers to self-identification questions or any other important questions that you've asked attendees to answer. Next slide, please. And here is where you can edit tickets within Eventbrite. And so that's where you check off whether, you know, the fees will be deducted from your revenue, or if you're going to have the buyer pay for the fees. And the great thing about Eventbrite is that you can add a lot of different tickets. So if you have an event that has multiple dates, you can add them all in each separately so that one person can, you know, either sign up for them all, or they can, you know, pick a select date or session that they want to attend. And another important thing I want to point out is in Eventbrite, you can have a ticket sale end date, which does help, you know, when you're getting close to an event, you can stop sales and, you know, talk to your caterer and be like, this is how many dietary restrictions we have so far. This is how many attendees we have, you know, and that way, when you get to the event, you know, you don't have too many surprises. Next slide, please. And this is the actual order form section where you would complete it yourself. And so we do recommend that for when you're filling this out, to have each attendee collect information with the questions that you're asking. Just because when it comes to self-identification information and maybe some of the other questions you might ask, like, you know, what are your dietary restrictions? You don't want just the ticket buyer answering those questions. You want the answers for each attendee that they are registering. Next slide, please. And here's the order form again. Over on the right side, you can see this is what it looks like at checkout for the attendees. And then over on the left side is where you would be filling out the information within Eventbrite. And I do want to note that it's important to make sure that you're following what is on the most current form on the AGNR compliance website, because they do change every once in a while, and it's important to make sure that the questions and the options and answers match exactly what is on that form. And a reminder that, you know, these questions are not required. We can't require people to answer them. They have to be optional. Next slide, please. Right, so now I'm going to go into registration for Google Forms. Another easy way to set up registration is with Google Forms. You can share the form through social media, email, on the website, and it's extremely easy to complete. And then you get the results instant as they come in through email. I will note that You do need to make sure within responses that email is set up for you to receive, because that is not automatic. And then also with Google Forms, you'll receive, you can create an Excel spreadsheet within Google that'll give you all the responses from that form. And you can even, if you already have a Google form set up for your event, you can just add this tab onto that form, that sheet. And then for payments, we can still accept payments through Google Form. They can be mailed to your office. You can accept cash and check at the door. We now also have the ability to accept credit card payments. But you must follow UMD policy. We do have that listed in our resource page that will be sent out to everyone. All right, next slide, please. And then here's an example of an event that was held. It was a free one, but you can see in the description over to the right that we've got the accommodation statement and the program assurance statement. And then, below that, it would have, the self-identification statement along with all of those questions within the form. And over to the left, Google Forms should be published before you're ready, or before you're going to send it out to accept responses. And then again, you can send it out through the form, or you can also copy the link and send it out via email or post it on social media. And I will note, there is a template within Google Forms that has the self-identification questions, so you wouldn't have to type those all out yourself. But I do want to say, make sure that it matches what is on the AGNR form for compliance. Next slide, please. And here's another example of a Google form. And we can see that they're accepting, special food requests. So if you have someone with dietary restrictions, you can either have them, pick one of the options, and we recommend, always having an other, because there are many dietary restrictions out there. So don't limit people just to a few options. And maybe even do in a fill in the blank, just so they can type in maybe what they have. And the form or the sheet to the right shows that it has a timestamp for when people registered. And then, you're collecting their email address, if they can attend, and then whether they have any dietary restrictions. And I think that's all for me.
All right, thanks, Kate. What questions do we have for Kate before we move on to just one other system for gathering this information? No questions for Kate? Eventbrite does usually, it's tricky. And so I think it is what Kate said, it is very important for us to have, if possible, one Eventbrite per office with various users. And when you're setting it up, there is a process. And Kate does have a scribe with those instructions, and that'll be also on our resource list, but it does have to involve campus. So I just wanted to make certain everyone was aware of that, because I've heard that, numerous faculty, they have their own Eventbrite, they set it all up themselves, and that's, that's okay. We can adapt, but we want to make certain everything is set up properly, and it is good for one person to be able to monitor that with multiple users, and making certain that we're included all the compliance things that Kate talked about, because again, as a faculty member, you have lots on your plate, and you're focused on the content, where our staff can really help with all of those logistical kinds of things. Okay. Okay, so another option for 4-H educators are that they can register and attend local events, their participants through 4-H Online. So they can put those local programs, conferences, camps out there on 4-H Online. Also, non-enrolled youth may now register, which is not an option that we had in the past. It creates a unique URL and the compliance requirements are built in. So I'm not sure if we have any 4-H educators out there today that have utilized it. If you have, feel free to pop in and share your experience. Okay. But just wanted to point that out, that that is an opportunity, and definitely talk to the state 4-H office if you're unfamiliar with that. And then, of course, Zoom. Many of our programs are still utilizing Zoom, which is great to reach a lot of people. So there is a Zoom polling guide that we have and a number of video tutorials to help us through that. But I just wanted to point that out because the Zoom polling guide does give instructions on gathering the reg data, the compliance data that we need to. And I just wanted to point out this particular website. It's an extent on the program and organizational development site that I shared earlier, and this is one of the sections of it was the Zoom conferencing system, and then all the various help features for us if we wanted to make certain that we are gathering all the data that we can in an easy fashion through Zoom. We don't have to figure it out ourselves. There is this polling guide available. So I wanted to make certain everyone saw that as well. So let's jump back into our check sheet, our logistics. We're still about 2 months out prior to our event. This is one thing that we want to make certain always, that if we're collaborating with another organization for our event or wherever we're holding this event, please ensure that we have a current signed assurance agreement with partner organization is what it's called, and that it is in our compliance files, because that's something that is required for any non-governmental partners that we have. Assuring them that they understand that we are open to all and that there's no discrimination. They cannot discriminate based on any reason for anyone coming into our program held, let's say, at their particular location. Then we'll also, at about 2 months out, we're going to get that event flyer ready, whether it's digital or it's sometimes we still use paper flyers because we're reaching populations that may not have access to the internet. We have to make certain that the program assurance and accommodation statements are on those. And so I wanted to draw your attention, because Kate did mention it, the compliance website. This is what we're talking about. So if you aren't aware, hopefully everyone is, this is the site where we go and confirm that everything we're utilizing on anything we're marketing or any of our materials, whether in print or digital, have the resources that we need. So go to this site, make certain that there's lots of reasons we use this site, but the forms and procedures, that's one of the sections that would have many of the items that we've talked about today. We'll also talk a little bit about the civil rights posters. Everything in here is vital, the language access as well, and the disability resources. So familiarize yourself if you're not already an expert on this, because this is really, really a vital component of a successful event planning. So I mentioned the assurance agreement. This is the form, and I'm sure many of you have already seen it. You complete those sections and make certain that our partner does sign that, and we have that on file. And then I wanted to draw your attention to this procedure, which is linked in that website that I just showed you, but has been updated last year. It's a 15-page document, but it's always good to, have this particular one printed and available to kind of remind yourself of all of the policies and procedures related to compliance. Making certain you're always using the most up-to-date assurance statement and you're using it properly. So if it is an 8.5 by 11 or larger document that you're printing, or you're on a website or a registration form, you have to use the complete full statement. If it is on a small postcard or something very small, you can use the shorter statement, but just making certain that you are in compliance with that. So this is the full statement. Always good to have that on your PowerPoint slides as well. And then the Justice for All posters. I know all of us should, be very familiar with these because most of us on this Zoom are using the green poster. We do have the blue poster also in our offices. It has to be printed on 11 by 17. So just making certain we're in compliance with that. This is what they look like. And they should also be at the beginning and end of all of your presentations. That's the latest guidance that I have found. We also will be getting an orange poster, but I didn't put that in today's presentation. I actually saw it yesterday and I asked our compliance office about it, and it hasn't necessarily rolled out yet. So we will be seeing it. So I wanted to give you a heads up. I'm not exactly sure what the guidance will be, but I wanted you to be aware. It looks very much like this, except it's orange at the top. And I wanted you to know that that is on its way. This is something that I have noticed on some events, UME events. I haven't seen this, not in my cluster, because we've been doing it for a long time, but I just didn't want anybody to not have this on their advertising. You have to, as Kate showed you earlier, you have to have the statement here that if you need a reasonable accommodation to participate in X event, please contact, and you put usually, the admin's name or the educator on or before a certain date. And it really needs to be 2 weeks prior, because if they need a special accommodation, we have to have time to be able to do that. And so I just wanted to draw that to your attention. So now we're still about 2 months out. Any questions on any of the compliance information before I move forward? And there are many trainings about that. And if you are in need of a training, or you have questions, definitely reach out to Latoya Hicks or Alina Asperville. Those two individuals are experts in the College of Aging-R and will be willing to provide any information. But before you call them or email them, I would direct you to the website and really work through that first, because really everything that you might need is there. It's just, how do you actually implement it would be your questions that you would want to have for them. So a couple months out, you want to advertise on your webpage once you have everything set in stone, social media, lots of places that you can put advertisements for your programming. I also recommend that we send county-based faculty send invitations to our EAC members, other VIPs like our county commissioners. Maybe you want to reach out to some of our representatives, other UME administrators, just depends on the nature of your program. This is the point where you want to order your materials and supplies, making sure the sales tax is not charged. That's something that we know through our purchasing, that we can't have sales tax, and that the max for credit card purchasing is only a max of 4%. Then we get into some things that get a little more dicier, and that's planning the meals and the refreshments. And I recommend definitely collaborate with your finance admin in anything related to food and contracts. So I'm going to turn this over now to another business services specialist, Diane Montgomery, sorry. She's going to share with us some of the key things to remember with regard to P cards and T cards. Diane?
Good morning, everyone. It would help if I unmuted myself. I'm sorry. I'm gonna go back a little bit because the purchasing card slide here shows food, but you will need to purchase supplies before then, I'm sure. Table coverings, decorations, whatever you're doing, whatever the event is for, there's gonna be all those other supplies that you're gonna need for the event. I recommend that everyone view the procurement website. The link is on this slide. Just review the rules real quick because there are rules that, we hear about it when we get trained, but sometimes we forget things and we need reminded. So, couple of quick reminders. Anything over $5,000 has to be purchased, not through a P card. It has to go through a workday requisition and a PO. And also another big one is, regardless of what you're purchasing, even if it's something large and heavy and bulky and you need it shipped to the event center, in order to do that, you must first request an exception or a waiver from procurement. Do not have anything shipped to a non-university address without that waiver in place. Ask questions, it's okay. Just wanted to cover that real quick. And then as Jennifer said, it is a 4% credit card processing fee for the travel card and purchasing card that is allowable. And then everything has to be sales tax exempt. We are sales tax exempt in Maryland and DC, and those things that you order online, you should still ask for the tax to be removed. And sometimes it can't be removed, and that's okay too. But as we get into the actual fun part of purchasing, like the food and whatnot, your grocery store items that you're going to use that you're going to purchase with your P card would be like recipe ingredients if you're doing a demonstration, snacks, refreshments, continental breakfast items, cakes, cookies, beverages, paper products. What you're really not going to purchase with your P card is prepared foods at all. Example, some grocery stores like Wegmans, they have a catering section. Just because your purchasing card works at Wegmans does not mean that you should be buying prepared hot foods at Wegmans with your purchasing card. That really should go onto your travel card. So, is there any questions before we go to the next slide?
No questions at this time, thanks.
So then next slide. So then here are the same thing. Travel card, before you do anything, it's always wise to update or to review the policy on, especially on this one for food purchases other than employee travel and resale. So basically events. And I just went into that link just now, just to confirm that what I was going to say was right. And I think they increased the tip percentage. It used to be, I thought it used to be 18% that we could tip on the travel card. And now it looks like now the maximum is 20% according to the website. So it is good just to scroll through these every now and then. So your travel card is going to be for your food purchases for prepared meals. Even if you're using Wegmans catering, you're going to do that. Now, if I was buying cupcakes at Wegmans, would I probably do that? Probably not. I'd probably use my purchasing card. You're also going to use your travel card for caterers, bakeries, restaurants, even Dunkin' Donuts for coffee, for the prepared coffee. You're going to do that. It is important to make sure that everything is sales tax exempt. And some vendors do have their own policy before you even get to the store. And then you're also going to need your sign-in sheets for backup documentation, your agenda, and the itemized receipts. And the itemized receipts need to be in the name of UMD. All receipts need to be in the name of UMD. However, we also understand that some receipts aren't in the name of anyone, especially if you're going to Dunkin' Donuts to buy coffee. It's not going to say University of Maryland on the receipt, but it shouldn't say anyone else's name on the receipt either. And all that information is important to upload and concur when you go to reallocate your actual expense. Currently, according to the website, and this, when I say per diem, I don't want this to be confused with like per diem for you traveling to a conference. This is just for us planning it and doing that. So according to the website, the federal per diem amounts for meals serve as a starting point for guidance for the suggested maximum. So currently, the rule of thumb is 1 to 2 times the per person allowance and should include the tax. Of course, if it's out of state, it may end up having to be taxed, with a maximum tip of 20%. So it's important to keep that in mind because I have seen some stuff come in like really, really close to that. And of course, there's a link on the page. You can click on it and put in your zip code. It'll tell you what the per diem is for that area, for that particular meal. Just be cautious about that. And then next slide. I think that's my last slide, but I could be wrong too.
It is.
Are there any questions regarding any of this so far?
There's no questions in the chat and I do not see any raised hands.
Perfect.
Okay, so Diane and Kate are part of a larger team, fiscal ops team, that are reviewing now, kind of the final reviewers since Rhonda Barnhart has retired, or moved on. So they are seeing some issues come in. So Kate or Diane, do you want to share any of the common, I know you talked about a few, Diane, P card or T card issues that you want to just remind people of, separate
Oh.
from food?
Oh, absolutely. For P card, when you order stuff from, say, Amazon, right? The shipping address should have University of Maryland and the shipping address. Not only does it tell the delivery driver that they're delivering to a business, it's not for you personally, so it should have University of Maryland somewhere in the shipping address part of it. And you should not be using your personal email address to place orders for work, or your home address to place orders for work. It should be your, work address, your work email. Trying to think if there was anything. Shipping to a University of Maryland address is extremely important. Waivers can be requested. It doesn't mean that they're going to be granted, but it can't hurt to try, and it should be requested on the front end way ahead of time. Especially considering some of the stuff that you may need for your event. It may take like some serious physical manpower to actually move some of that stuff around if you can't get it shipped there. So it's important to try to work on that way ahead of time and request those exceptions through travel services.
Kate, I think she had a couple too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, when you purchase something, make sure that you're putting in a good description, like a justification of why you're doing this. Not just, supplies for the office. That's not specific enough. We do need to know, like, if it's for a specific event, please name that event, And as far as, with the T card, kind of the same thing, make sure you're explaining, catering for such and such an event. And I think that's all I really wanted to put in there.
Okay, excellent. Thank you both. All right. So now we're about a month out prior to the event. We're going to, do all the distributions, create the press releases if you're still using the local newspaper, keeping our colleagues in the office reminded. We always talk about this at my staff meetings every month, is what are the big upcoming programs, dates, so that we're all, even though we should have talked about it 2 months ago, just reminders to everybody that, hey, they're going to be, 50 people through the office on X day, or the 4-H team's going to be super busy preparing for this event. So Thursday, Friday of that week, we're not going to, be able to help with other things. So just making certain that we're communicating and that we're not working in silos, none of us, that we're all, talking with each other and keeping the whole team, faculty and staff, involved across program areas. Of course, getting your agenda ready, organizing all your materials, and the faculty member, they're in charge of all their content, getting all that ready, but making certain that all the compliance references are in that PowerPoint. And then any of the event signage requirements that you might need. We have our events all over the place, and so sometimes they're not places that our participants are familiar with. So we've ordered the big sandwich boards, and just making certain all of that is determined a month out so that if you need to have anything printed, you're ready to roll with that. I also wanted to draw attention to the, again, back to the program and organizational development website. We do have press release templates. We have lots of free stock images that we should, be utilizing the proper images that are allowable, making certain that we're using our logo properly and that we're using the most current logo, and all of those issues help, again, brand us across the state if we're all using the same thing and not we all love the UME logo solutions in your community, but we're not using that anymore. So making certain that you're, using all the latest. Also familiarizing yourself, this is on the website as well, with resources for accessibility. And it's very important that, we make certain that we keep these things in mind. So this presentation that's available is just about planning an event and making certain that we're keeping all these things that we're talking about today. We're taking it into consideration. Um, and then also this things that sometimes we don't think about, but the visual disabilities, the contrast and color accessibility when you're designing your PowerPoints or any of your handouts. So I just wanted to bring that up. And then 2 weeks prior to your event, hopefully everyone on this Zoom knows where all of the pull-up displays we had those made a couple of years ago. They're UME, a general UME pull-up display, and then there's one for each program area. I think it's really important that at your event you take your program area pull-up because it's just very colorful and it's nicely branded. And then I would also suggest, because they're lightweight, to take the general UME one as well. And then if one of your colleagues is holding a big event they want to promote, you could always take their pull-up display and put some of their handouts for that event on a side table if you have room. So I would just say, it just makes for a very nice branded image for Extension if you throw those displays in. Along with those displays, there were marketing materials printed. We have brochures, we have those cards, and they're in multiple languages. So I don't think it hurts to take those, and it's just good marketing because our clients may only know our program. If it's an ag program, they may not know of all the other things that Extension does. So that's why it's good to take those other brochures along so that it opens the doors for other programs. 2 weeks out, again, review your program participant list for those special accommodations requested, because we may need to quickly, sometimes that takes time, find an interpreter or translator, whatever it might be that's needed. And we do have a resource, that's the Affinity group listing. And that is on the compliance site. Right here, the directory is where you would find that. This is also on the page that shows the program assurance statements in multiple languages, the complaint form, the I Speak posters. Just make certain that, again, you take some time to check out the compliance page. But if you're looking quickly for the services directory, it is on this page right here. And this gives, we call it the affinity list of all the interpreters and translators, so that you're not scrambling around trying to find them on your own. We do have this list, and it's by language. You should be able to reach out. And then, of course, American Sign Language, and then the various companies. So that is there for your use. Then about a week out, we're closing that registration, determining, did we meet the minimum attendance? Because sometimes, we thought we'd have a big crowd, but we need at least 10 to make it, efficient for us. We may have to cancel if we don't have enough, but we usually have plenty. So we follow up with the venue and set up the plan and any last minute requests. Some programs, they like to do reminder emails or phone calls, getting all of your things together for the program, including end of class evaluations. We'll talk about it. Self-identified card, which we've mentioned a couple of times, and your teaching effectiveness. So the end of class evaluations, I know that, you've probably watched that Qualtrics video training, but there are a number of, if you're a new faculty member, end of session questionnaires that you could put together. This is an oldie, but it is a goodie, and that's why I did give you this reference on our resource sheet that you'll get later. But I always like to, as a faculty member, determine, okay, what kind of end of session information do I want? Of course, I need outcomes, but which of course is here, number 3 in categories. But sometimes you just want the participant reactions. You want to know, like, was this the right time of day? Was this the right location? Did this work? So there's a number of categories. The teaching and facilitation, we're going to get that information through the UME teaching effectiveness forms. Outcomes, again, there's all kinds of categories. And then, do you want to find out about future programming? The needs for the future? And then, of course, we always gather the reg data. But I really like this resource. It is a pretty lengthy document, but it does categorize all of the end of session questionnaire information into, these 5 areas. And I just pulled one page out for you to look at. This is from the outcomes, F, intended changes. Just some people do struggle with developing questions. And so I just liked this resource when I was serving in my faculty role. I could go to it and get some ideas of things I wanted to ask. So I wanted to point that out for you, because that's one type of end of session questionnaire. Again, we know we have to ask this, we have to distribute this. They can choose to answer it or not, but we do use this to enter our UMers. So we would need this information, and this is the most up-to-date card. And as we've said multiple times today, go to the website and make certain, the compliance website, to make certain you have the most up-to-date version of this card. This one is January 24. And then, as a faculty member, you have to make certain too that you're utilizing the teaching effectiveness forms. UME administration expects to see a minimum of 40 to 60 forms per year from you as a faculty member, from 3 to 5 separate teaching events. So, of course, this is where you go to get the hard copy, or you can give your participants the web address or QR code. In addition to those, you need the 3 administrative or peer evaluations for at least 2 different classes. So these are lots of end of class things that you need to think through as a faculty member. So oftentimes you don't do all of it at once. You pick and choose, okay, this course, I don't necessarily need to gather a lot of outcomes, so I'll choose to do the teaching effectiveness this time, because our participants, of course, you have to do this at the beginning or at some point. You might have done it during registration, but it's still good to have this. So at the end, you don't want to bombard them either. So that's part of your strategy that you have to have planned out. You can find all of that on UME Answers. Just wanted to point that out. And then a week prior, you just gather all the things that you need. I know that used to be one of the things that, I would forget something audio visual. So that's why I put it on the checklist. You'll have that, like I said, your actual checklist, so you can remind yourself of that. And then any last minute details and purchasing all of the supplies that you need. The day of the event, making certain you have everything, including, your staff that are going to help you out. I always love to have name tags because I like to call on people, and during my presentation, and make it hands-on. And always good to have the Justice for All posters, not only in your presentation, it's always good to have them printed and there in the room. We talked about the UME display, making certain that you're inspecting the room, nothing worse than something going wrong as you're in the middle of your talk. I think it's always good for you as the faculty member to be there super early, and people want to come in, they want to talk. and they want to get to know you. So I think that's why it's great if you can have somebody helping you out with registration, then you can concentrate on that. Um, and then that day, making certain you have all your forms and you're, collecting everything you need to collect, and so you can do your humors. Wanted to point that out as well, that mandatory quarterly humors. If you haven't watched this 2025 training on humors, go ahead and take time to do that. And there are also a couple of guides that have been put out. So if you're still unfamiliar with humors, I think I have them right here. Here's one of the guides that I printed out from that, and there are a couple other PowerPoint slides that you could familiarize yourself, because we all have been doing humors for a while if you've been here. But I think it's good for staff to understand all of these things too, because even though you're not the person having to enter this, the faculty member is responsible. And same thing with the teaching effectiveness and all the compliance pieces. I feel like the staff support, though, is vital, because they actually, in my cluster, will be reminding the faculty member. Again, as a faculty member, they're concentrating on the content and all of that. And we have to also support the other required pieces as reminders, which I think is great. So post event, this is something that you'll hear more about. But as we have big programs, there's going to be an event reconciliation document for fiscal purposes. And so that'll be rolling out in the near future, so that we're making certain that we have the revenue and the expenses of large events properly documented. It's always great to hold that briefing meeting with your planning team. Those thank you notes are really vital. You don't just move on to the next thing. Sending thank you notes, whether it's email, handwritten, is great, to your speakers, volunteers, your staff who helped you. It's vital, so that they know that their work has been appreciated. Of course, putting everything you need in your central compliance file, and then those surveys that came back, it's always good to share those with your collaborators too. I just got one yesterday from a pretty big cross-programming effort in Allegheny County. The educator shared the results, the pre and post results, and it's because the whole office was involved in this program, and it's great to see that the time and the energy and the effort paid off, because participants definitely increased their knowledge and intent to change behavior. So that was excellent. So I think it's great to share with everybody, is my point, not just for your CV. And then, of course, the photos and a very brief, summary of the event to your office admin, whoever handles your monthly county newsletter, which we do here in all 3 of my counties, a monthly newsletter to share all the great stuff that's been happening, and also advertising other upcoming programs. So making certain when you come back, share those photos. Hopefully you have someone taking photos during that. And then adding any contacts, following up on special requests. I used to have a ton of those during my diabetes programming or any of my nutrition programming. People would want this or that, and they'd meet up with me afterward. So making certain those don't get lost and that you're following through. And then also, if you have a plan for 6 months following up with these participants on the adoption of change of behavior, or a year, put that in the calendar and make certain that you have a plan for following up, to make certain you're gathering those long-term impacts for your annual evaluation, for APT, all of those things, that it's not just a one-time program, or is this a part of something bigger than what's the session 2, session 3, where are we going with it? So looking at the big picture, so that when we look back at that particular UME event that we conducted, that we do have those short-term impacts that are going to lead to those long-term outcomes, and that the time, energy, and effort that we put into it has really made a difference in people's lives. So we have about 10 minutes left for any questions. I know it was a lot of information, but you will be getting the UME event planning checklist you'll be getting the slides, and then you'll be also be getting the resources from today. Any of the websites that we talked about, you'll be getting those links. Dacia?
Absolutely. Yes, we do have one question from San. And she asked if we don't meet the minimum of 10, can we switch to online instead of cancellation?
That's a great question. So I just threw 10 out there because that you only have 5. I know that some Master Gardener basic training programs in some counties may only have 5 because it's a small county, and that is fine. You make that decision on what is best fits your needs, your client's needs, and so I just threw 10 out there. To answer the question of switching to online, though, it depends because I know here in this county, in Garrett County, it's quite rural and many people aren't comfortable with online. So you would really have to inquire with your attendees, but that's truly your call on it. If you're going to go out for 5 people, no worries. You may, sometimes we hold the programs or advertise it at another location because we're expecting a bigger crowd. But with 5, I could have it here. So that might be a conversation you could have with those participants that, well, we had a small turnout. Would you mind? I mean, that's just an easy conversation with 5 people. Would you mind coming here to the office? And then you're not going to have the expense of renting a facility and those things. So does that answer the question?